go. All right. Welcome to episode number 138, Convos on the Pedicab. I'm here with my man, Nick Nittoli.
What up?
He wrote the #1 hit song, Boycott Target. Super psyched. I'm just a man on a tricycle, but we're doing big things out here. We're getting ready for the American Liberty Awards. Anyway, before we get started, we got to shout out our sponsors. Have you been leaving your house outside again? Texas weather can wreak havoc on your home, especially your roof. And if you haven't had it inspected lately, chances are that outside elements could be making their way inside your home. So trust Balcones Roofing and Remodeling to perform a thorough roof inspection and offer long-lasting solutions. They are the only 5-star rated roofer in Austin who specialize in installing the impact-resistant F-Wave Revia and back all roof replacements with a $20,000 guarantee. To schedule a roof inspection, call 512-937-8805 or visit balconesroofsaustin.com. There you go.
I love this shameless fucking self-promo, man. Can we curse on here?
Yes.
All right, cool.
You can say whatever you like. It's freedom, baby. Free speech.
I've heard from a lot of Christians I have a quote-unquote potty mouth.
Yeah, well,
it's pretty bad.
It is what it is.
Pretty bad. But yeah, man, I'm happy to be here. It's fucking hot as balls. My balls have combined into one single testicle. And yeah, man, I'm excited. American Liberty Wars, we got a lot of cool people coming. Apparently Alex Jones is going to be there. Forgioto Blow, fucking myself. A couple of other big artists. So yeah, I'm just. So you're going to be there. You're nominated for an award.
I am nominated Best Culture Jammer / Patriot in the Arena. I may also be presenting an award. Stay tuned.
Oh, awesome.
So either I thought it was going to be Best Medical Organization, which I really would have wanted to do.
That would have been cool.
But they changed it to Best Movie, which also works because we stay woke in the right way. So
totally,
either way we'll make it happen.
I'm a huge movie buff, man. I go see everything pretty much opening day. And I'm really disappointed right now because I was really looking forward to Indiana Jones, and that was absolute trash. It was just
I heard
garbage.
Ninja Turtles was like the wokest shit ever.
Oh,
but
really?
I almost want to go watch these movies just to like make fun of how bad it is too.
Yeah.
You know, like I think like maybe they do this just so that we can go and shit all over it.
And we do every time, like
And
for
we
sure.
take the bait.
Like my highlight is like talking to my wife on the way home about how fucking woke the movie was. How apparently I'm like, who's this girl who beats every man's ass? And she's like, I don't know, I can't find her anywhere. It's just like ridiculous.
My girlfriend won't watch television with me anymore because I always comment.
I don't blame her.
I always just provide non-essential commentary all the time about the hidden Illuminati agendas that are in every single TV show that she has no clue about. And I'm just like saying this stuff. She looks at me like I'm crazy, but I'm like, no, babe, this is actually true. Like, you know, you ever watch like 90 Day Fiance?
No, I've never even heard of that.
Oh, bro, you're missing out.
That's a TV show?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's a bunch of like desperate like incel dudes pretty much. And also incel chicks, you know what I mean? Like you got like the 90s Roseanne looking bitches,
Okay.
like, you know. Now she's kind of hot, right? But like 90, it's weird to say that like Roseanne looks better than Madonna, but it's true. You know, you got these like, you got a bunch of Lizzos. You know,
Right.
they're trying to find a man in like India or West Africa or something like that, and it's just like the most fiat trash show ever. And like lately, they've been having like transgenders on there, and I'm just
wow.
like, yo, they're only doing that just to normalize this shit. Like,
Sure, totally.
They are only trying to normalize it, and like it's fucking wild. And I'm like, hey, babe, you know they're only doing this to normalize this because they're trying to destroy traditional masculinity, so that when actual tyranny comes, nobody is able to stand up for it. And by the way, COVID was a test, and we give the globalists about a C-, but they want that A.
I'm so glad to be sitting on a trolley with somebody who actually knows that. Because the truth of the fact of the matter is, like, that's what I've been telling people every day of the week. Like, if the New World Order takeover happens tomorrow, like, who do you want? Do you want a bunch of Mel Gibsons in the street? Do you want a bunch of real men who are, like, actually going to take action and have that 2A? Or do you want a bunch of sissy transgenders who have been watching nothing but fucking, you know, the latest Disney Plus, you know, movie where there's absolutely no masculinity, so they're already programmed to have, you know, no fight back and no resistance towards this New World Order, and most people can't align with that idea. They have no idea what I'm talking about.
They think it's like crazy, or they're like the Wojak memes in person. Like you see those people. It's kind of like, yeah, it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. It's sad.
It's sad, but there is positivity, and I think that like, I can take solace in the fact that COVID didn't really succeed in creating this New World Order.
No, not at all. This was happening way before COVID.
No, but I mean, COVID was the final push. Was like that was like the big sprint. They were trying to sprint over the finish line with this virus, and it, like I said, you know, you can't win. You're not going to win if you get a C-.
Yeah, I think that COVID was a test run. in the sense where they were like, can we lock up the entire population? How fast can we do it? Who's going to revolt? Who's going to post on social media? What do the hashtags look like? Let's get all of this intel.
It's a data gathering.
Data gathering, absolutely, 100%.
And then once everybody starts pushing back enough, we're like, okay, turns out it's not as bad as we thought it was. Now there's a new crisis. Oh, look, Putin just invaded Ukraine. You notice how, like, right when Putin invaded Ukraine, COVID was done?
Yeah, 100%.
Kind of weird. It's kind of weird how that, like, just works out like that,
I think that they were like, let's test this out. Let's see how this works, because when we're really ready to push the button, we need to have the numbers. And so, just like you said, it's data gathering, finding out whether or not, they're going to have a problem, and who they're going to have a problem with. We pretty much showed our ass by letting them know. We gave them a list of names of who they need to stop when they actually go for the real COVID part 2 or whatever the next virus is. Isn't there something happening right now?
There has to be another virus, though. It can be a multitude of factors, right? As long as they get enough people to move into 15-minute cities, it's not about a virus. It's just about having micromanagerial levels of control over the general populace.
Agreed.
Right? And COVID was one way to do it, and it kickstarted it because we printed up like 80% of our money.
Yep.
A bunch of countries in Europe are experiencing unprecedented levels of inflation. The third world is a whole bunch of countries in the third world are having insane levels of civil unrest.
Sure.
There is, the current currency in a lot of these countries is devaluing like crazy.
100%.
You're creating a migrant crisis. You already had a migrant crisis, but now the migrant crisis has become infinitely worse. And yeah, you can blame Biden for being a little bit more lax or being perceived as more lax. But the truth is, like, Biden and Trump didn't have that. Like, their policies were not as different as people think they are. But the third world got destroyed from COVID,
Agreed.
from lockdowns, and from everything. And so, like, if I'm living in a third world country with all the crime and with everything that's going down, I'm booking it to America, and I don't care. And it just so happens that it coincides with Joe Biden being the president.
Sure. Yeah, I think that, it has something to do with the virus, but for the most part, it's mainly about control and trying to test out who's gonna be the factor, who's gonna be the problem that we have to worry about, and that's what we did. Like, we were all posting about QAnon the entire time, and fucking adrenochrome and fucking blood drinkers, and when are they gonna lock her up, and when is Hillary going to Guantanamo Bay? Now they have those hashtags, they have that data,
and they put you on a list, right?
Yeah, 100%. And they know who to stop.
I think a lot of that stuff might be kind of like a Fed trap.
Agreed. QAnon was like the biggest
Fed
fucking
trap in the world.
Yeah,
I didn't go to any of the boards or do any of that stuff. I was like, I don't know about that. These lockdowns are really bad. Speak in relatable terms, because this isn't fair to a small business owner, and it de-incentivizes anybody from wanting to actually advance in life. And when you start doing that, you create a society where all the conveniences and luxuries that you grew accustomed to are not going to exist anymore, and then you have to be a hard motherfucker to make it. And most of y'all, myself included, are not that person, so we should probably stop this before it gets too far. So that's kind of where I was like in that mindset. But I think that what's happening with the migrants is that I have this feeling like that the flood of migrants, because it's a lot of military-age men just coming in over the border, a lot of them might be used as like the standing army for the New World Order.
It could be.
That's what it feels like, because like you see videos in New York, like Antifa's like train, like like the Antifa activist groups are like, hey, we want to help the migrants coming into the border. We want to provide aid.
Sure.
And a lot of the people out there, like, they do have, like, I know people that are involved and do all that stuff with these Antifa groups, right?
Right.
I'm not as like as friendly with them as I was in the past, but like, we're so cool. We're not like, we don't beef with each other. But a lot of them are kind souls who genuinely are like, I want to help the people that are struggling.
Sure.
And there are going to be people that are going to take advantage of that and say, hey man, like, look at what these people, look at how you guys are being treated. Like, look at how bad capitalism is. You fled here because the United States destroyed your country. Kind of true.
Totally.
You shouldn't have any love for this country and this and that. And here, we will help you. You can come to our meetings. We'll give you food. And then you have the conversations, and then like, all of a sudden, like, it's just a really low key, very soft way to just recruit new communists.
Yeah, I think
a
lot of this stuff is really, in my eyes, government funded. Like, I think the push for QAnon to become a mainstream conspiracy theory was government funded. The moment I saw a conspiracy theory on ABC and NBC News, I was like, this is not actually happening. Because if it was actually happening, the last place in the world that they would be promoting this idea is ABC fucking News or CBS or any of these, C Seymour BS or any of these places.
Yeah, I like that one.
So for me, I was like, I knew immediately that something was up. But also like with Antifa, the riots, the BLM stuff, I think that's a lot of it's government funded stuff for them to divide and conquer, but to also test out on the population what works, what doesn't work, how can we kind of stir the pot, and
how can you manipulate the discourse?
Exactly.
You know what I think the big psyops are that people aren't paying attention to? Are the prevalence of actual Nazis at the Pride events.
I didn't know there were a lot of Nazis at the Pride events.
So when we were at CauseFest.
Are they there for anal?
Maybe. Are they giving or receiving? Who knows? I'm gonna show you this move. It's the power bottom.
The power bottom.
But
could be.
So me and Matt Baker went to kind of walk around and check out the Pride Fest.
I saw that.
And you saw that there was an actual Nazi with a sign that says "Fags for the kids."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, you're a Fed.
Do you still think he's a Fed?
Yes. Because he's a Fed to me no matter what. To me, he will always be a Fed because he's doing their work.
Okay. Oh, that's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah. He's a Fed. He is a Fed until he could definitively prove that he's not a Fed. So to me, he's
Sure.
a Fed because you're behaving like a Fed. And so because you're acting like a Fed, you are a Fed. And when you call these people Feds, you know what else it does? It undermines the prevalence of actual Nazism. Because the most uncool thing you could be is
a fucking Nazi.
Fucking Fed.
Oh, both.
Yeah.
Both.
I'm Jewish, so yes, the most uncool thing you could be is a Nazi. But also,
Yeah, but if
you're one of those
walks
people,
and talks and quacks like a fucking Fed, it most likely is a Fed.
Yeah. And when you call these people Feds and openly mock them and make fun of them, you're also disassociating yourself from those people because these people, like, you know the playbook, right? The playbook is, like, anybody that's not complying with, like, this radical agenda, and I know we're going to segue into, like, your career in the music industry. Like,
Sure.
this, but anybody who doesn't, like, they'll resort to calling you a Nazi or a white supremacist or any of these things, right? And so
happened to Mel Gibson.
When you start seeing Nazis at these protesting these events, they're going to lump those people in with us, and I think that's the thing we all got to watch out for. And it's like,
100%.
if you see people like that, you got to make fun of them more than you got to like make fun of the pride goers.
Sure.
You see a drag queen, you see Sprinkles the drag queen prancing out of the Pride event, and you see a fucking patriot front looking Nazi. You troll the Nazi. You gotta troll the patriot front dude.
No, it's funny. I was talking to somebody on the plane about this coming over here from Hollywood, and they were telling me, the mantra of the gays in the beginning was just leave us alone and let us do our thing. We don't want to be bothered. Let us be who we want to be. And so now it's like, well, let us indoctrinate your kids, or if you have a problem with that, then you're the problem. And so the entire agenda and the culture of being a homosexual or being trans or aligning with one of the letters in the alphabet group has completely changed now. And there's coercion. There's pushing the agenda towards kids, towards adults, towards parents to do it to their kids. And that really wasn't how the gays rolled. Like in the early 80s, they were like, man, like we just don't want to get AIDS and be left alone.
My friends are dying for me. Well, you notice how like the older gays are a little different.
Oh yeah,
like,
of course.
They're way
100%.
less woke, and they're way more conservative. And they're like, bro, you don't know any oppression. Like I had to go to a different funeral every 2 months.
Yeah.
Because I have friends that were dropping dead from this disease. We have it great. Do you think most gay people are like about the kids and all this bullshit?
I think that, again, it's a government-funded thing. I think that the same way BLM kind of stood on their own and then all of a sudden got this media push and now they're in our face, there's some George Soros funding. There's some Rockefeller and Rothschild money that went into their movement because it's like, well, we like what you do, so now we're going to promote you.
A lot of pharma money.
It's the same thing. Exactly. It's the same thing with the LGBT community. It's like they stood on their own. They had their own thing going, but then the government funded that, or the Illuminati, I'd rather say, than the government, funded that, kind of backed them because they like what they're doing, and now it's become this thing that's very prevalent and very seedy.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I think that like the whole push for trans kids is like just another way to create lifetime big pharma customers.
It's depopulation at its finest.
It's depopulation. It's you create confusion when you create a generation of people to confuse absurdity with reality. Is how you get fascism and how you get authoritarianism.
Agreed.
And then when you also make it so that like you're writing in the curriculum that you shouldn't out a trans kid to their parents, all you're doing is creating an environment of secrecy where parents are becoming less and less involved with their kids, and the state becomes your family.
No, 100%.
You know what I mean? And then also point. Like you could have teachers that could be could just be could have a bunch of weird mental problems or some weird fixations, and they
Totally.
can genuinely want to turn more people trans because they feel like this is their only way to create a solid identity
100%.
footing, and now they want company in their movement, so they might be looking for things that don't exist, and you might be creating trans people in a scenario where those people would just be normal grown-up adults. And so
No.
that's what I think where the problem is really lying, though.
That's
right?
a great point that you made, Alex, because at the end of the day, the goal is to get the government to be your mommy and your daddy. And what they're doing right now is saying, well, if you have a problem with your kid trying to, change their gender, then you can get your kid taken away.
In some states, yeah.
Yeah, and that's happening in California right now. So it's like, that's a great point. That's really the end goal. Mommy and daddy is government. Big brother is literally big brother. And that's that's happening with what's happening right now. Like that's the course that we're taking right now. It's very crazy.
I mean, it's like you're not going to be very good at fighting tyranny if you're. I mean, this is sort of off topic, but you're not going to be very good at fighting tyranny if you're fucking a different girl every week. You're not going to be good at fighting. You're not going to be able to effectively fight. You're not going to be able to effectively fight for your own self-sovereignty if you're, dependent on a cocktail of pharmaceutical drugs to function and be happy, or if you're going out and drinking like every other week, and like it's just not, those two things just do not go hand in hand with one another. You know what I mean? So like I think that's what the problem is. But dude, people like on the right are also like kind of fucking up with how they talk about regular gay people, and they just think every fucking gay dude's a groomer, and that makes us look like fucking assholes.
Yeah, that makes us look like bigots, and it causes a narrative that's being pushed in the conservative movement, the Republican movement right now that's not really accurate as a whole, but there are a lot of people like that, you know what I mean? So it's unfortunate, but it is happening. You're absolutely right.
I see it all the time where they're just like, I see all these fucking memes, especially on Twitter now. I see these blue checks, which that could be robots, that could be anything, that are just pushing shit that's just blatantly like, it's like you're going back into the 1930s with some of this shit, right? Or like they're seeing stuff where it's like, you ever see like those fight videos?
Like bum fights?
Not bum fights, but like the JFC fights or like the hood fight videos or like those high school fight videos.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And it's like every time like you see like a couple black kids fighting or a black guy beating up a white guy, there's fucking racist shit all across the board.
Totally.
All across the board. And I'm just like, if these are real people, you're literally being psyoped into going against your own brothers, while the globalists and the New World Order and the Davos class are, the Davos class, they're more unified than ever, right? You watch the meetings.
Sure.
You listen to these guys talk. The Davos class is experiencing unprecedented levels of unity, while meanwhile, we are doing this to ourselves. We're fueling unprecedented levels of division when people are like, yep, it's the blacks, leave it to them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then the other side, they're talking about hating white people and this and that,
Yeah.
and like all the identity politics. And I feel like this identity politics stuff on both sides of the aisle is like what I've noticed lately, like these past couple months on Twitter. This episode is brought to you by Balcones Roofing and Remodeling. Have you been leaving your house outside again? Texas weather can wreak havoc on your home, especially your roof. And if you haven't had it inspected lately, chances are that outside elements could be making their way inside. Trust Balcones Roofing and Remodeling to perform a thorough roof inspection and offer long-lasting solutions. They are the only 5-star rated roofer in Austin who specialize in installing the impact-resistant F-Wave Revia and back all roof replacements with a $20,000 guarantee. To schedule a roof inspection, call 512-937-8805 or visit balconesroofsaustin.com. You've been seeing identity politics on both sides, like on steroids, and that's just like, that's a psyop too, and people are just going right along with it.
Couldn't agree more, man. What I try to harp on when it comes to the race thing, because there's so many different avenues that you could take. My personal avenue that I feel the most strength and confidence in is talking about aliens and talking about UFOs and the fact that we have proof that there are definitely other beings and extraterrestrials on this planet, and that the only race that should matter is indeed the human race. And I really harp on that fact because going back to that Ronald Reagan quote about maybe what we need is a a threat from an outside presence or an extraterrestrial, race. That's really what this fucking country needs. What this world needs right now is to just say, I don't care what your skin color is. Do you bleed blood? Do you care about your loved ones? If you procreate, do you care about your family, your children, your daughters, your sons? Yes. Well, then you're just like me. We're the very same people, and we don't really need to. We don't really need to differentiate, anything else at that point, and really fight and try. It's just the
of course, and like all the humans,
bro.
Nick, all of the human beings from every country in the world and from every continent, we all need to unite together to defeat the aliens, and then we could form a one world government.
Well said. Well said. Well put. I'm down.
So, you wrote the #1 hit song a while ago. Is it still #1 on the charts?
No, but it was called Boycott Target. It went #1 on Billboard, #1 in all genres on iTunes, and yeah, by the grace of God, we had a lot of success. Shout out to my contributors, Jimmy Levy, Forgioto Blow, and Stoney Dudebro.
That's what's up. And so, how long were you at the top of the list for?
I don't know how many weeks, man, but it was enough to get a Billboard plaque, which is on its way to my motherfucking house right now.
Dude, that's fucking wild.
Yeah, man.
Have you made any money from it?
We have, yeah.
Have you? And so you used to be like a mainstream musician, right?
Yes, sir.
So
Producer,
tell me about that.
writer.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I got my start on a Bravo reality TV show called Bravo's Platinum Hit. It was hosted by Jewel and Carrie Diaguardi. Had a bunch of celebrities on it. That was kind of like my foot into the industry. And then I began writing and producing for some pretty big artists, Snoop Dogg, French Montana, YG. Did a song with Corey Feldman that actually hit Billboard charts a while back. And yeah, the list goes on and on as far as artists that I work with from behind the scenes. And then I started doing like non-secular music, and I did some terrible records, a lot of satanic records. Kind of became a Satanist for a while.
Were you really a Satanist, or were you a Satanist without realizing it?
I was like a Satanist by association. Like the people that were around me were Satanists, and the things that we were doing were satanic.
Can you explain that in detail?
I mean, it's kind of hard to, like, at the end of the day, self-reflection is really what Satanism is all about. And a lot of people don't realize that once you start to worship the self over everything, that's what Satanism is. Most people think you have to worship some deity and you give your life to Lucifer, etc. But the truth of the fact of the matter is that once you start worshiping yourself over everything else and kind of only seeing yourself, and the only thing you're worried about is your self-reflection, you are by definition a Satanist. So that's kind of the lifestyle that I was pulled into. That's what I was promoting in my music. And yeah, it took me to some really dark places in Hollywood. I saw a lot of stuff that was way too dark for my taste, and way too rich for my blood. And so I was saved. I definitely had a situation where God saved me.
Well, Nick, what did you see?
I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, man, we'd have a shorter time talking about what I didn't see, to be perfectly honest with you, because the people that I was aligned with were doing some really dark shit. And this was around like the 2010 to 2016, 17 era, when people were doing a lot of stuff that they felt like they really could get away with.
Like what?
So, I mean, the stuff that I witnessed, as far as behind the scenes goes, was just evil. The best way I could put it to you is like evil. Like think of what is good, and then just think of the complete, utter opposite of that. And not only that, people striving to outdo each other to see who could be the most coarse, who could be the most satanic.
But it was really just because they wanted more views, they wanted more plays, they wanted more likes on Instagram, but that was just what they had to do to get those things, right?
To be perfectly honest with you, in my situation, it was more of trying to work themselves up into a different level of evil. So basically, they were trying to impress other people. A lot of these people were much older than them and had the fucking handbook on being evil and being satanic, and they were trying to not only impress them, but try to outdo them.
Okay, but Nick, did these rappers and artists know that they were doing this consciously, or were they just like poor kids from the inner city that just wanted to take care of their family and live large, and actually they got blinded by money and wealth, and they just wanted to make sure they kept the gravy train running? Or did like somebody sit them in the room and say, here, if you want to make it, you got to drink the blood of this kid. You got to sell your soul to Satan. You got to sign a contract in blood. And you got to come to these meetings with us where we perform satanic rituals. And by the way, here's a kid.
Yeah, no,
Like
it's funny. It's more about, like I said, like Satanism by association. So a lot of these people, like artists, for the most part, artists are really blind to it. It's really big time producers. It's really people who own the record labels. It's also the families that own the people who own the record labels, and those kind of people who really have power, who really dictate how things are going to go. And so it's a hierarchy. So everybody I'd say that the rappers are like, in the middle ground of that, and the producers are way above them, and then after that the people who own the record label are way above them, and at the end of that are families. And I'm talking about bloodlines that have run this industry and the movie industry, magazine industry, you name it, for a very long time, that are dictating how these people in the lower levels are going to act and what they're going to do.
But which families?
I try not to name names, man. For
you don't want to be Clinton or Epstein.
Yeah, I mean,
you don't want to drive your car and all of a sudden the brakes don't work. Or
yeah,
something
yeah.
Like that. Is that what it
I don't
is?
want to get
on, bro.
Isaac Cappied, man. So no, at the end of the day, they're all names you guys know. I mean, everything's
like the Rockefeller.
Yeah, everything's been exploited.
Jacob Rothschild, Klaus Schwab is a stakeholder in the. In Interscope Records, is like that kind of like what it is. Like,
Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, every one of the 13 bloodlines for sure. But also, maybe a few that you guys have never heard of. To be perfectly honest with you, the best way to look at it is just look at who people's parents are. That's really the biggest conspiracy theory that I've ever found, is I'll be working with somebody in the studio, and I'll be like, wow, that was an evil motherfucker. And then I go find out that person's dad wrote the hit song for this artist and owned this record label, and et cetera, et cetera. It's all about parents, bro.
Wow. That's kind of crazy.
It's insane.
And do the artists realize that they're a part of this, or do they kind of like... Or do some do, and some are just like are just fucking too dumb or dense to notice what's going on?
The young ones really have no idea what's happening for the most part. The older ones are the ones who, if you've had 10 years of success in this business and you've walked that red blood carpet, over and over and over and won a bunch of awards, then you're fucking in. You've done things that, God doesn't want to see you do. And
you've been quiet about other people doing it, and you just
100%,
go along, and you're
100%.
just going along, like you're going along.
Yeah.
Like, do you see Drake drinking adrenochrome and like diddling a kid?
I've never met Drake. I worked a lot with his camp. I worked a lot with the producers from OVO.
Okay.
At the end of the day, like, Drake doesn't really have to say anything. His symbol is the owl, and he's representing the 6 nonstop. That's literally what Drake lyrics are. He's representing his company logo, the OVO owl, and all he talks about is, I'm from the 6, the 6, the 6. So it's like, you don't really have to say too much or do too much when you're aligning with those values. What's very interesting about Drake is that kind of goes back to the reptilian agenda when you think about the name Drake and Draco. And,
oh shit! Okay.
So if you're say you have reptilian overlords and they own this fucking planet, what's the name that they would want to be hearing circulating nonstop every moment on the fucking moment? Drake.
Yeah, Draco.
Drake. And what have you heard for the past 15 years? Nonstop, for reasons that don't really make sense a lot of the time. Drake.
But are these actual, like, so is Drake, all right, is Drake a Draco reptilian, or is Drake just like...
Like I said, I've never met Drake, so I have no fucking idea.
Or did somebody who's like connected to that those types of people say, hey man, I think you should call yourself Drake?
Yeah, no.
This would be a really good idea. We'd love that.
No, it's his name.
The network would love it.
No, his name is Aubrey. His name is Aubrey, first and foremost.
Yeah.
It's Aubrey Drake Graham, right?
Oh, okay.
So that's his
name.
That's
All
his
right.
actual name. But this is what I'm talking about when I say they see something that they like and then they put the money behind it. So they saw that this kid was coming up. He was working with Lil Wayne. His name is Drake. And he's decent. He's not mind-blowing. He talks about everything everyone else is talking about. But now let's put $1 billion behind him and have everyone say the name Drake on a minute-by-minute basis.
Right, but do you think someone like Drake is like actively worshiping Satan, or do you think he's just like going along for the ride and he's just like a clean-cut dude that raps and wears nice clothes and like has some properties, and then like when he does interviews he's just really polite and really chill, and then he just goes about his day?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that Drake's a talented guy. I think that there might have been somebody behind the scenes who decided to put money behind him, and whether or not he had to keep that status by worshiping a certain deity or promoting a certain agenda in his music. I mean, for somebody like Drake, what I would say is, how have you never talked about what's happening in this country? ever once. Not one time ever. It's always like, I'm fucking chilling with my homies. I just smoked a spliff. How did you have success for over 15 years, number one hit song, a time and time after again, and never address your fellow man?
At least he's also not virtue signaling and telling people that they have to wear masks or do any of that shit.
Yeah,
either.
no, I'll give him that for sure.
At least he's just like staying apolitical and just,
100%. 100%. And to be perfectly honest with you, Quentin Miller wrote a lot of Drake's stuff. And once that was exploited, Quentin Miller became famous for a little while talking about how he wrote for Drake, and he wrote a lot of Drake's most famous songs. So it's not exactly like Drake is really, behind everything. There's people behind Drake that make Drake successful along with Drake. So
what are these?
But just real quick, we just said Drake how many times in the past 5 minutes?
So many. Dude, you're right. Okay. So what do these executives talk to you about? And how did they even get comfortable enough with you to talk to you about this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I presented myself as kind of a producer, behind the scenes that didn't really have an interest in being an artist, that was willing to work with a lot of artists that most producers wouldn't work with because I was trying to come up. And because a lot of these artists have problems, a lot of them have drug problems. I had an artist staying with me for a while that I had to literally like wake up and fucking pour Red Bull down their throat because they were fucking ODing off alcohol in my fucking house. So like a lot of these people, cannot function. And in those situations, I would work with some of those artists.
Well, they picked those guys for the record deal for a reason because they want to promote degeneracy. That's I think what I think happened.
Yeah, yes and no. Some of them are too degenerate to even make it to the meetings. So that's
okay.
But so I work with some people like that, and no names being mentioned, but I work with some people like that, man. And I think that they felt comfortable with me to start talking to me about stuff because I think they do it with a lot of other people. I don't think that I was special. I think that I was just, in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Okay, and they thought you were a producer, so you just overheard some of these conversations. Like, so what was specifically talked about?
I mean, there's a laundry list, man. A lot of stuff that I've talked about in other interviews. One of the main things that was told to me by somebody who I would listen to, because a lot of people have lip service, and you're like, well, what's your bank account look like? Do you affect change in the natural world? Can you actually back up what you're talking about? And the answer is fucking no for a lot of these people. This was from people who really do decide what you're going to see tomorrow on Dateline News, what you're going to hear tomorrow on the radio, what you're going to see on TV. And one of the things that they promoted was blurring the gender lines and saying that you would, walk down the street in 10 years and not know whether it's a boy or a girl. And this was, early 2000s, and it was way before the transgender thing took off in this fucking rampant way. And now I'm seeing it and hearing it. Another one of the things that they talked about to me was, you don't need to be good in this town to win. The more deplorable you are, the more some of us are going to accept you and like you. So it was just like I said, man, the promotion of evil at the highest level, You
don't have to be good to win.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. Tyranny loves a pliable mind.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to be a total degenerate, you are a lot more easy to be manipulated by the head of a record label.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it'll happen in the sense where I'm working on an album with an artist, and all of a sudden, the song that we thought was the best song is pushed down to the last song on the album, and you're like, what? And then they'll promote something that you're like, I'm trying to figure out what is in this song that they liked. And now looking at it with the mind that I have and the heart that I have, I know exactly why that song was the one that they wanted to promote, because it talked about non-action. It talked about drugs. It talked about, degeneracy. It talked about, basically having a new age mindset or kind of a new age agenda, which is another thing that these people are pushing behind the scenes. These are the people that are pushing the new age agenda every day of the week. So when my grandmother reads this fucking new age crap, and I'm like, please,
what new age crap?
I can't, it's a laundry list. She reads everything, and it's very unfortunate. I forget what book she had last time I saw her, man, but it was literally on the list of the worst books you could read.
Okay.
And
it's still a book.
Yeah. And it's still a book, facts. And I was just like, if you knew who, because she's a devout Christian, I said, if you knew who was making this content, you would put that book down and burn it immediately. If you knew who was behind these TV
remember
shows.
Remember that artist Big L?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Do you remember that song, I'm the Devil's Son?
Yes.
You know that, I think that was the song that got him signed?
Oh, was it?
I think so. I could be wrong. But I think that he, I heard from somewhere on the internet that he went into his meeting with that song, and that was a song that he played, and he got like signed on the spot. And
Wow.
the executive was like dancing to it and loving that song.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's something that I don't really need to profess because it's happening so rampant now in Hollywood that people are seeing it for themselves. Look at Sam Smith. Sam Smith came into this fucking thing looking like a wholesome young boy. You know, he's saying a lot about, you know, Christian values. He had a lot of pro-God songs. And the next thing you know, he's on stage with fucking ass chaps fucking singing, you know, with the fucking flames going about sinning. Just the songs about sinning. His music's about sinning.
True.
Lil Nas X. I mean, he didn't really come into this thing with a lot of wholesome values, but just, you know.
But he was a cowboy the first time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But his latest music video, or one of his latest music videos, is like straight gay porn.
Yo, okay.
You saw that,
what about
right?
that new chick who who literally was like promote? What's that?
Doja
Cat. Yeah. That
Yeah.
is. It's so out in the open.
Yeah. Yeah, when I see Doja Cat, what I think is that that's somebody who they didn't have to work on too much. She showed up ready to go. And that's what's happening right now in the Illuminati.
Same with Cardi B.
100%.
Cardi B showed up ready.
Yeah, because her message is deplorable coming in. It's not like they had to change her much. It's not like, you know, Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera.
Whitney Houston was really wholesome when she first came in and then just became a full-blown drug addict.
Yeah, and I think there's a long story behind Whitney, and I know some people that are connected to Whitney and her daughter, and them both dying in the bathtub was no accident, no coincidence, and if you want to find out names, just look into who Whitney was connected to, who she was signed to.
There's a lot of weird stuff. I remember I saw a documentary, like a 9-part YouTube documentary about like Satanism in the music industry, and you just saw like the symbolism is like everywhere. Like the number 23 shows up all the time.
Yeah.
They're always making triangles. They're always talking about Rain Man. They're always literally saying they're always like praying to effigies of like Satan, and it's like, I mean, when you talk about this stuff, you sound like a tinfoil hat wearing lunatic, but also
Not to
when
me.
you start, no, but I mean, most people, like, you know, if I was like not in a relationship, even with my girlfriend, I'd bring this stuff up to her, and she like laughs at me, and like I have to make jokes about it, so it's still a joke.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
But if I'm on like a Bumble date with somebody, you know what I mean, and we're like, we're at a club. And
A
I'm
Bumble
just,
date with someone who's not your girlfriend?
Well, if
So
I'm like
you-
single, right, I'm at a Bumble.
Oh,
date with
okay,
somebody,
okay. I
right?
thought you were exposing yourself right now. I was
No,
like,
no.
Alex
Alex
got balls, man. He didn't
No,
give a fuck.
No, I don't do that stuff. That stuff is so bad. But like, if I was like single, right, and I'm like a Bumble date with somebody,
Sure.
and I'm bringing this stuff up, like she's walking away and thinking I'm like a total fucking crazy person. But that enough of the symbolism is there all the time. Like if you could watch any kind of music video and find the symbolism somewhere. Like you can it's like playing detective.
Sure, 100%. Yeah, the symbolism has died down if you really look at it. Like in the early 2010s, you couldn't watch a movie that didn't have like fucking complete, you know, symbolism and sixes everywhere and triangles and
23s
at
and
the
the eye.
yeah, at the end of the movie it had to come down to something.
Every NBA players
something
doing Illuminati rituals when
yeah.
they shake hands.
Oh, God.
Like, what is
yeah,
like, bro?
no,
come
every
on.
movie plot came down to something with the eye and the pyramid. They're done with that. They're done with their symbolism. To be honest with you, right now they're not promoting anything like that. They're on to the gay and trans movement. And that's where the Illuminati is really found today, is that they've just decided that depopulation is the number one priority, and getting rid of this masculine society is their number one priority, mainly out of fear, and they're dumbing it down.
Well,
The symbolism's died out, bro. It's over. That was for us in the 2010s, and it was a fucking ride. It was so much fun to
True.
find the symbols. It's done. They're not doing that anymore.
Well, I mean, you don't think they still do symbols?
It's
Like they don't just
very
put it in there because they can, but people just aren't paying attention to it because now it's even crazier.
It's very seldom. I think that when that whole rush of symbolism will be their downfall was happening with all of the Q stuff, I think that made them kind of back off it a little bit.
But you also have to you also have to show who you, like with these people. I'm not an expert on it, but you have to show who you.
Yeah,
they have to
what you're
show
gonna
their
do.
hands because
It's part of their religion.
Well, yeah, because then when people don't fight back, they were granted consent.
Yeah, 100%. The idea
Right.
is if I tell you I'm going to come up to you, Alex, tomorrow and punch you in the stomach, and then when I see you tomorrow, if you don't put your hands up in defense of it, that's on you.
You
and
let me punch you in the stomach. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the motive. That's the mindset. And it's a sick mindset, and these are sick people.
But I think that's kind of how it is. Like that's what I think is happening. And like they'll have movies where they'll kind of like talk about certain things that are going to happen, and then a couple years later something happens. Like the movie Athena.
Yeah.
They had like a French Civil War, and then all of a sudden, like, you know, Paris almost turned into an Islamic caliphate. I think it died down a little bit. My last guess was a CIA officer.
Yeah,
and he was telling me,
pre-predictive programming is
Yeah.
real, and I would still watch The Simpsons to see what's going to happen in the next 10 years. But what I'm saying is I'm obsessed with movies and the movie industry. So I see and watch pretty much everything that comes out. Not so much TV shows anymore just because it's fucking trash. And so are the movies. But for the most part, the symbolism has turned into we don't need to flash sixes and triangles and eyeballs at you. Now we're flashing that the Flash literally is gay. And now Dumbledore is
April O'Neil's a fat black chick.
Exactly.
A fat black lesbian or something like that. Yeah.
100%.
Well, but
that's where they're at right now.
Yeah, I think that
That looks like Professor X's chair.
it does a little bit.
Right?
Yo, it does, bro. It does. Dude, that kind of makes sense.
That's just fire.
That actually makes sense because what was I going to say? Well, when you can't distinguish absurdity from reality, like that's how you get authoritarianism.
Totally.
And also, you create the lifetime big pharma customers when it comes to that. And you have when you normalize something that is okay, when you normalize something that there's nothing wrong with, but is inherently abnormal.
Yeah.
Right. That's
Or
what I think
absurd.
is happening. You're normalized, like even transgenderism, right? Like if you see a random transgender person on the street, like they're not a bad guy, they're not a terrorist, they're not hateful, you shouldn't be beating them up. If somebody's if they can write code and program software,
Totes.
they should be able to get the same job programming software that you are. If they
Totally.
can fix a car just as well as you, they should be given the job. Like you should,
Yeah.
that shouldn't be a precursor to judge somebody. But the fact remains that there's like a 1 in 20,000 likelihood of you becoming that person. And why would you want to normalize a condition where only 1 in 20,000 people have? That's what people need to understand. Like people need to think deeper about this. I'm like, you're normalizing something that is inherently abnormal. Not wrong, not bad, not evil. You're just normalizing something that is abnormal. It's like there was an episode of South Park where this lady had a conjoined twin fetus attached to her head.
Yep.
Like conjoined twin dyslexia. Like what if we tried to encourage 7-year-old kids to have conjoined twin dyslexia? Like,
Sure.
it just doesn't make any it's not done for the sake of inclusion. And I think that like people on the right, they'll just go into bashing gays and bashing trans people and just being angry and like reeing the same way that the NPCs on the left do. They're just turning into right-wing NPCs. And instead you just gotta understand that this is not being used. And I think a more effective approach is just effectively communicate that this stuff is not being used to help the less fortunate. I think that's a better way to communicate. Like, it's just not being used to help you.
I think that what people are missing right now is it's not so much the rise of a star like Lizzo and making, it's such a big deal that
she's horrible too. Look at what
yeah. But I don't think it's that big of a deal that Lizzo is in existence right now and has popular songs and stuff like that. What people are missing is the death of our stars, our real stars, and our heroes. So when somebody like Mel Gibson, who has shaped the nation with his movies, his films, his directing ability, all of a sudden now he's a cocaine addict and he's spouting off against Jews and he's just been completely ruined in the media's eyes. We don't have a hero. And so now what you see is like the rise of Channing Tatum in place of somebody like Mel Gibson. And you're seeing the loss of stardom from somebody like Britney Spears, who's now, again, they're killing off our real stars.
She also just had a bunch of mental problems too.
Sure, she did. But now what you're seeing is that she's like a meth addict. She's trapped in the house. Just watching her videos now on Instagram just give me the biggest creeps in the world. It's like actually scary to look at her. Michael Jackson, another one. These are people that were looked at as our kings and queens. And what you're seeing is the death of that. Lady Di. You're seeing the death of those celebrities and the rising of somebody like Lizzo, the rising of somebody like Cardi B in place of that. And that's what's really bothering people on a spiritual and fundamental level, and they don't even know it.
Well, Britney Spears also promoted cultural degeneracy too when she was performing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about like the idea of Britney when she first came out and really first rose to stardom. She was a talented broad, beautiful, clean cut for the most part.
She was like 15 years old though. They were like that was like overtly sexualizing kids. Like you had a 16-year-old.
I didn't have the biggest problem with that, or even like, oops, I did it again. Like,
she's the first one. She was 16 years old when that song came out, and I'm
sure.
like, bro, we got people like Alex Rose, and they're catching motherfuckers that try to fuck chicks like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
and that was normalized and mainstreamed.
Yeah, but as far as like what little girls looked up to with Britney Spears, they didn't look up to being a slut whore and trying to like pop their ass on a fucking stripper pole like Cardi B. There was some sort of wholesome values that went with Britney Spears, and her stardom was like people were like, oh, I want to sing one day like Britney Spears. Like little girls worshipped her. Now, who's in Britney Spears' place right now? Who would you say? The answer is fuck all, no one. There's nobody there. So that's what I'm saying.
Spears'
What you
place.
have is Cardi
Yeah.
B. What you have is Nicki Minaj. What you have is Lizzo. What you have is a bunch of
Ariana Grande, Miley Cyrus.
Yeah, Ariana Grande would be the closest one, I would say. But Ariana Grande does stuff that is so far fucking from wholesome, it's not even funny. And she does songs with Travis Scott. She does songs with all of these other deplorable artists who have a deplorable message. When Britney Spears was first coming up, like there was nothing like that. You know, she wasn't like, you know, the closest thing she would do is like a song with like Nelly or something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
whatever happened to Travis Scott ever since that concert?
I think I just saw that like 40 people were hospitalized at his latest concert. It was like the other day.
Yeah, when he never got canceled.
Yeah.
He still got his deal. He's still making his millions.
Yeah, he's in with one of the biggest satanic families in Hollywood, though.
Really?
Kardashians.
Oh, yeah, he's with Khloe now, right?
Yep.
That is also weird that every person who dates a Kardashian winds up getting ruined.
Yeah. Travis Barker's with what's her face right now from the Kardashians. God save his soul. Travis is a good dude, man.
They ruin these people. Lamar Odom became a full-blown drug addict.
Yeah, dude. I saw Lamar Odom walk into a fucking nightclub in Hollywood, cracked out of his mind, and I was like, all right, there's no conspiracies here. That motherfucker's on. That motherfucker's right there is not real.
Bro, you think that chick? Do you believe the story about that chick?
Not at all.
Not at all. That she was just like mad about a cell phone. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all.
After 3 weeks of finding who this chick was, we got
AirPods.
fucking AirPods, bro, and alcohol.
I don't believe that in any capacity.
This is my favorite part of how America works. Like, prominent people that I follow just posted like, oh, well, you know, we found out about the AirPods. That's disappointing. And in my head, I'm like, really? Like, you actually believe that was the basis of that story? The girl got up and turned around and said that person is not real. How does that correlate to her missing her AirPods? How does that make sense to you?
It makes zero sense.
It makes zero sense.
It makes me believe the lizard narrative more, actually.
Exactly.
Like
100%.
It actually makes you think maybe that's actually true.
100%.
Maybe something is up.
Didn't even have to be a lizard. It could have been one of the fucking 12 alien races, man. It could have been a gray. It could have been fucking a Nephilim. Who knows? Could
have been anything. Well, that's
what
AI. That's what alien.
Little small of an
that's what
airplane
an
for
alien
Nephilim,
is.
but-
It's something that you create that's foreign and different.
Yeah, 100%.
And AI is alien.
Yeah.
And if we have technology that is more advanced, that is way more advanced beyond our comprehension that we're not sharing with the public, AI could always be the use of AI could also be used to create an image of an alien.
Oh yeah, no, this AI thing that's taken over
You know what I mean?
right now.
Like AI could also be
It's
used.
scary, man.
Like if you see aliens all of a sudden start invade, like I noticed that they're. Do you feel like they're priming us for an alien invasion with all the UFO stuff?
Yeah,
and it's just and like we're just not taking the bait and we don't care, so it's just not going to be a thing.
Yeah, I think that the what is it, Operation Blue fucking
Project Bluebeam.
Project Bluebeam. I
Pierre
think that's
Manast,
very possible.
Yeah, he was a Canadian scientist, I think, and then he was found run over like on train tracks because
Yeah.
he was exposing how the government was going to use holographic imaging technology to stage a fake alien invasion to help perpetuate the creation of a one world global government.
Yeah, 100%. I'll go back to my guy Phil Schneider, who talked about deep underground military bases and having a war at the Dulce, New Mexico base with aliens. And this guy was on stage with 4 melted fingers talking about how he worked on projects underneath the ground with the government and says that there's aliens down there and that there was a war down there. And he said, and I'm talking dead serious. And then Phil Schneider, they found him dead, strangled by a piano wire. And you're like, well, how could you not believe what he was saying? So, and that's one of the things that he said.
They might not be aliens, so they might be AI. They might be AI concoctions that we created.
It could be. He was saying that they were physical, like reptilian and gray aliens. He was talking about all these races
we have
and stuff.
technology that we don't even know about. And it's not entirely outside the scope of possibility that we're just creating these creatures.
Like manifesting? Or what do you mean?
Like we're creating them in laboratories where you.
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah, 100%.
Like we're just building them.
No, I think that bear
using technology to build them.
I think that bear in that fucking Japanese zoo or whatever, I think that's a splice. You saw this bear?
No, I did not.
You didn't see the bear?
No, I did
Oh,
not
this
see the
bear's
bear.
going viral right now because he looks so human. And they're like, what's going on with these bears? He's literally like talking on his cell phone. He's like doing his taxes. He's playing NFL fucking fantasy. He looks so human, it's not even funny.
It's a bear?
Yeah, and so everyone's like, I don't think that bear's real. It's a human in a bear suit. And in my head, I'm like,
why is the bear doing taxes?
no, I mean, I was making a joke just to emphasize how human-like he was being. He wasn't actually setting his roster for his NFL fantasy draft.
That'd be hilarious.
It would be. But no, he's so human-like, and people are talking about it right now. But I think it's a splice. I think that human splicing with animals is another thing that's happening in deep underground military bases.
Well, that's been happening just in general. Like you have Japanese scientific journals that are credible that are talking about this, and they've been talking about it for years.
Yeah.
And then when Alex Jones talks about the chimeras, everybody laughs at him and thinks he's crazy. I'm like, no,
totally.
Even animal hybrids are real. And there's that movie, Sorry to Bother You.
I don't think it's in that.
You should watch that movie.
What is it about?
It was this guy Boots Ridley made it, and it was a really good independent film. This guy was working at a call center.
Okay.
And then eventually got promoted to power caller, and there's a thing called worry-free living.
Okay.
Which is basically like, oh, we can't pay your bills, but you can go live in this facility where all your meals are taken care of forever, but you just got to sign a lifetime labor contract.
Okay.
It's like basically prison, right?
Yeah.
It's
interesting.
And so eventually they were like the CEO of the company was like giving these people injections because they have no consent anymore because they have no rights. That were turning them into half horse, half human to increase their labor output.
Interesting. It's called
Sorry to Bother You.
Okay.
Gotta watch it. It's so good. And so I'm like, oh, just like the chimeras. But you bring that up to your girl, and she's looking at you like you're fucking crazy. Like looking at you like you're totally insane. I'm just like,
that's okay, Alex. I believe you.
Thanks.
I'm still waiting for like a bald guy to fucking pull up to that chair and just sit down and start talking to Wolverine.
Dude, imagine he starts lifting the pedicab with his mind. That'd be fucking wild. That'd be the coolest shit.
It literally has an X on the back of it. I'm like, who?
So how did you feel? Like, how did you wind up like walking away from like the mainstream Hollywood? Like, how did that happen?
Well, like, it's funny. Like,
most people don't do that.
Yeah, man, I'd like to take full credit for walking away, but I'll just keep it really real with you. Like, they walked away from me in a big part, too, because of the music that I started making. So, like, I guess that was my decision initially to walk away by creating this kind of music. But I was still down to get some of the money, man. I was like, what's going on here? But yeah, I started making like, pro-Trump songs and conspiracy theorist songs. Like I got a song called Tinfoil Hat.
Was this while you were signed?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm
still signed.
You're still signed?
Yeah.
It wasn't like breach of contract or anything like that? They're still just letting you like...
No, it was like a breach of promotion from them. They weren't going to promote anything I did. They weren't going to talk about anything I did. And I was getting promoted with like Justin Bieber, Travis Scott.
Okay.
I was getting promoted with Big Sean and like all these other artists. And I was actually planning a tour with a lot of these other artists. And in the midst of that, COVID happened. They shut down my studio at Jim Henson Studios. That was a big part of me trying to stop me from creating music.
Yeah.
And in that time, man, I just started, I built a studio at my house, started making a bunch of pro-Trump songs, pro-Republican, pro-conservative values music.
And did you always have that, or did you feel like you had to kind of hide that while you were in Hollywood?
My plan, once I saw what these people were doing, was always to talk about it, but I really thought I was going to have enough from them as far as a fan base and money to be able to do it in a way that might have gotten me sacrificed or, just gotten my message out to a lot more people. So the way that I had to do it was a shock to me, and I had to build my fan base kind of from the ground up. And to where it's at, to what it is right now, which is incredible. And I'm super, super humbled by it and grateful, but I did it my fucking self. Like nobody helped me. It was, it was me against the world.
Well, how old are you?
I'm 35.
Well, yeah, so don't they sacrifice you when you're like 27? Like, that's like the 27
man,
club, so you're like...
My 27th birthday, I was like, fuck, dude, I made it. They're not choosing me. Thank God.
But is it the whole year? Is it your 28th birthday or like all...
I mean, when I turned 27, I was like, I can't believe I made it. Like, honestly, because I was like, in the
Do
the
other
shit.
celebrities like actually buy into this stuff, or do they like? Do other celebrities ever talk about this, or other artists ever talk about this stuff like amongst themselves, like by themselves?
100%. A lot of them know that they have to keep bringing it up in order for it's a marketing tactic at this point. Like the Illuminati became a household name in like 2000.
They openly talk about it now just to sell records, so it's like
100%.
Yeah.
100%. They know.
Do they believe it? That's the question. Do they actually believe it?
It's hard to say what somebody believes and what they don't, but they know that they're going to make more money if they act as if.
They're in the Illuminati.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And when you act and you say you are, you're also saying that you are. And you're promoting their values.
Yeah,
and you're promoting the Illuminati just by saying it. Doesn't matter.
It's scary.
It's a very weird cycle.
It's scary with some people because you really don't know whether or not they're in, or if they just try to sell more records by talking about it, or what the deal is. You can never know what somebody does in a smoke-filled back room. So it's.
But if they keep talking about it, eventually they will get approached and they have to join.
Yeah,
that's kind of what it is, right?
Sure.
If you say it enough, bro, you're kind of in. You don't have a choice. You already made that decision. You already made that decision openly by saying, "I'm a member." So if you go in there, you can't say no, because if you say no, they will sacrifice. Those are the people who get sacrificed. I think the people who talk about who use the symbols and pretend to be part of that group. And then when they are told, hey, guess what, man? We want you to do this, and we're gonna let you in on something. How do you feel about this? And they kind of throw out the feelers. And if they say yes, you're good, you're in, right? But I'm hypothesizing, right? But if you say no, hey man, I'm good on that, man. I wasn't serious. I was kind of playing. Then they'll sacrifice. That's when they'll sacrifice.
I mean, these are big money deals that happen with a lot of validity behind them. So it's not really like somebody can just back out. At the end of the day, when somebody gets their check, they get their money, and their conscience kind of rolls into play. That's when you see people getting sacrificed, because they're going against their promise. They're going against their oath, and a lot of people do that. Robin Williams is one of those people. He made a lot of money from Hollywood and decided he wanted to be a good person. And he didn't want to fuck around with kids, and he wanted to out Steven Spielberg, who made a lot of his movies and was behind movies like Hook and stuff like that. And so he saw some stuff behind the scenes. He started talking, and they capped him.
But they said he committed suicide. Yeah,
of course. But if you look at the movie that he did right before it was 3 or 4 years before his suicide, he dies in the exact same way. They say it was from a belt, hanging with a belt. He does that in this movie that he made. Forget the name of it. But so and that's them choosing one of his films and recreating it and lying to the public.
And you think that he knew about? Did he have any idea that could have happened to him?
I'm sure he knew. Yeah, I think Michael knew. I think a lot of people knew what was going to happen, but that's why they're brave soldiers, and those are our real kings and queens. They should really be looked at as heroes.
What about Juice WRLD?
Man, I think that nigga just popped too many pills at an airport like an
idiot.
So
he wasn't he didn't get sacked?
Nah, man. I don't think so.
No, he was just an
Not
idiot.
that much influence. He hadn't really done, people knew him. They liked his music. But
I liked his music.
Yeah, he worked with Eminem, who a lot of people say is a clone. And
I don't know about that.
A lot of people say that.
But he's never getting sacrificed because he's going with the agenda.
Yeah,
totally.
100%.
He is just going to do whatever it takes to get that bag.
100%.
Same with Dr. Dre.
Yeah, and
same with Jay-Z.
Look at all of the appearances, Eminem featuring Satan that he's had on his albums. He literally has songs where he's just talking to the devil. It's that stuff happens. That stuff happens when you get into this fucking movement. So
what?
100%, man.
What do you mean,
It's a occult influence that happens to you.
You take DMT and you see the elves or some shit.
No,
like that,
I mean in the sense where the record label's well, hey, I got a good idea. You know what I mean? You get pinpoints of stuff that you should talk about on your albums from the top.
Oh, they tell. Okay, so they tell them what to do.
Yeah, 100%.
All right.
And so that's what happened with Eminem. Again, realizing real talent and saying, oh, I like that. Let me put money behind it and dictate how it's going to go. It's the same thing with fucking BLM and the LGBTQ community
right now. What about
now.
Snoop Dogg? Because Snoop Dogg seems like he's pretty kind of chilled out right now.
Yeah.
Or Wiz Khalifa. Wiz Khalifa now is just all about working out and doing Muay Thai and training.
Yeah, Snoop is an interesting character. Wiz Khalifa, I really couldn't speak on because he had a lot of success. And that Black and Yellow song was the number one song.
You know that I remixed that song for that Biden song?
Oh, really?
I think I sent it to you. I'll play it for you again.
I don't remember it. But
it's Joe Biden molest kids. He's a pedo.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay.
He had a lot of success and then he kind of went away. And that's what you see with a lot of these artists is that they'll have a lot of success and then they'll go away and you're like, well, that person wasn't willing to, sacrifice or fucking do really what they needed to do to stay in the limelight.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, Wiz Khalifa hasn't really been producing. He has not been producing new stuff at all. Yeah, he has not. He really hasn't been producing anything. Well, I mean, he had Peace and Love and some stuff, and he's still getting a lot of love on Instagram.
Yeah. I just think that once you make it to that kind of level that Wiz Khalifa had, that kind of success, all of a sudden he's, he should have been, having like consistent success. And I think that, he probably was just like, man, I just kind of want to smoke weed, chill with my girl, fuck bitches, and not sacrifice kids.
Potentially, right? Yeah. You all right? Yeah. But he also just rapped about smoking weed. Like, he didn't really rap about, like, terrible satanic stuff anyway.
That's true.
Like, it was, like, very catchy and pop, like, more often than not. And it was just, like, to hype up people to play sports, and that's kind of it. So he never really was involved with all that crazy bullshit anyway.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, like I said, man, it depends on the artist. It depends on the label that they're signed to, how far they're going to go, how far they're going to take it. But, I think that when you see somebody, like I said, who's been on that bloodstained carpet, red carpet, 15, 20 times, getting their 30th Grammy and shit, you kind of know what's up. You kind of
know that this is what you've consented to be a part of. And, especially when they become politically active and they're just becoming activists and puppets for the establishment. It's like, 100%. We know what 100%, you're about.
Yeah.
Like, you're on the next level of that fucking Illuminati.
Yeah, totally.
You're on that next level. Like Jay-Z. He's up there.
I mean, that without saying, like, that's a name you don't even have to put into the conversation. Like,
well, there was one of his songs was like Obama on the text. You already know what I'm gonna do. Like, I'm like, what are you gonna do next, Jay-Z?
I mean, when you're talking about rappers who are talking about having political power like that, they're outing themselves. You don't even need to expose them; they're exposing themselves. It's obvious.
Yeah, they got to flex.
100%.
And also, when they do that, you are encouraging. They are role models for kids, and you are encouraging the next generation of people to follow in those footsteps. And when you have people who are hip hop, I feel like it's mostly in hip hop too.
Sure.
Like, why is hip hop like such a hotbed for like cultural degeneracy?
Well, because it's a degenerate genre, so you kind of have the ability to use, and a lot of them come from really, really poor projects and stuff like that, to where they can be manipulated like that. Like, sometimes you'll have a pop artist and you're like, I can't manipulate this girl. She's from the country. She's got country money. Her dad owns a bunch of fucking sawmills, and she doesn't even need our money. She just wants to be famous. So they can't really manipulate that kind of person. That's why country music, if you look at it, it's like there's not that many Illuminati country artists, because
it's getting really woke now.
Yeah, it's getting
like
woke.
Boycott CMT. That's why we're
100%. But at the end of the day, that's not the genre for Illuminati. You know what I mean? You don't have to look into Reba McEntire's history or Leanne Rimes or any of these, Garth Brooks and his symbolism, because a lot of these people come from money and they don't need to be bought. But hip hop, you have people like Fetty Wap, who's from one of the most deplorable, worst towns in New Jersey. It was just right near my house. So that's somebody who can be bought. And Fetty Wap was so broke that now he's in jail for drug dealing after that song went fucking #1 in the world. He had all that success and couldn't make anything of it. So
was it because he wasn't getting, because he got cheated out of royalties, or because he was just that stupid that he just blew his money?
When it comes to Fetty Wap, makes me believe that they're not like bringing people into the Illuminati anymore. Because I'm like, this nigga had one eye. How did he not become your poster boy
for the Illuminati?
He shocks me. I'm just like, how did this not happen? So I don't know.
I feel like a lot of rappers have an illusion of being wealthy while they're still broke.
Oh, of course. Yeah, no, you could expose rappers all day for like fake shit. Like,
there's a Jermaine Dupri segment years ago, how rappers go broke, and it's like, here's $1 million, and now you got nothing in 10 minutes.
Yeah. And Jermaine Dupri is, I won't talk too much about Jermaine, but I know Jermaine, and he is. I'll just say he's a big part of the problem.
Okay.
In Hollywood. Back to what I was saying about the older cats. So Jermaine Dupri was on fucking Bling Bling with Lil Wayne in like fucking 2001 or some shit. He's been around. He's been around the block.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's also like I read some. I don't know if it's true, but I read this like Facebook Reddit post about how in like the early 90s, a bunch of record executives were sitting down in like a roundtable meeting, and a couple of executives came in from these private prisons.
Oh wow!
And they said that like now we made some sizable investments in these private prisons, and now we want to promote this kind of music.
Crazy.
And they made them sign like an NDA that they couldn't say anything about it, and then like this happened right in like 1990, and then all of a sudden gangster rap just mushrooms.
Yeah, it's a profitable genre, man. At the end of the day, like you have. You have inner city kids who were never gonna,
It's the easiest generation to manipulate. That's the
Exactly,
problem.
exactly.
Inner city black kids from the ghetto,
100%.
who were systematically designed to be raised in fatherless homes and shit like that. Easiest people to manipulate.
Yeah.
And you know what's kind of crazy is that like the whole cultural degeneracy that you're seeing right now, like. Now you're seeing in the suburbs where Sprinkles as a drag queen is performing and twerking for your kids.
Yeah.
They beta tested that on black kids in the hood. That's what
100%.
I think. I think that's who they beta. They beta test all this stuff on those people, and that's what it looks like, right?
It's one of those genres where these stars mirror their fans in the sense to where it's like it's a poor inner city black kid who makes it. And rises from rags to riches, and then you have poor inner city black kids who listen to that artist and think that they can do the same thing. So there's a mirroring that's happening there that's really conducive to the goal of the Illuminati.
Well, yeah, and it creates a perpetual underclass. It creates a perpetual class that's always oppressed, and it fuels tension. It fuels class tension, and it fuels a bunch of racial tension, and it helps to expedite division. And then, this is happening while the Davos class is more united than ever, and I think people got to kind of understand what's going on.
100%.
They got to understand the deeper picture.
100%.
Before we go,
Yeah.
how do you feel about the presidential election?
I think it's Trump 2024, baby.
You're Trump?
Yeah, man.
I'm not gonna lie, bro. Like I don't want to.
47, bro.
You're what?
47, bro.
I'm not. I'm kind of feeling DeSantis.
DeSantis ain't gonna win shit,
Well,
man.
maybe, but like
He should have waited till 2028.
Okay, but like, hold up.
I like DeSantis. I think he's a
I
great
like Trump
governor.
too. I like Trump too, right? I just feel as though if DeSantis governed Florida, if DeSantis managed the United States the way he governed Florida,
Yeah.
we would still have a United States. Whereas like what we saw in 2020, Trump got steamrolled.
Yeah.
He got steamrolled by these people, and you had DeSantis that actively stood up to these people when nobody else was doing it. And if you're going to be doing that as a governor of Florida with no support around you,
Yeah, it's not the end of the world DeSantis wins, but at the end of the day, he's a great governor. He's not ready to be president. Should have waited till 2028 to start talking, and then he disrespected Trump, which a lot of Republican voters are not
pissed about.
Yeah, they're not going to like it.
Didn't Trump start disrespecting DeSantis like right after like November? Because I felt like
Man,
DeSantis wasn't saying shit about Trump.
Nah,
And then
if you look, Trump only responds, bro. He's like, "Don't start none, won't be none."
Really?
The moment you say something, Trump shows up like a boss and destroys you. But he doesn't start it. Why would he?
If you feel threatened by somebody.
I don't think he's threatened by anybody. That's what I like about Trump is that he knows he's like the big line. He's like Mufasa, bro. He shows up on Pride Rock. He's like, all I see is a bunch of bitch ass Simbas and scars.
Well, he's a master persuader.
I agree.
He is a master persuader.
I agree. I'll be perfectly honest with you. Like I'm all pro Trump. I'll be honest with you because I think he's the best candidate. But I don't believe in elections. I think they're all rigged. I don't believe that the presidents even decide what's going on. I'm a full blown conspiracy theorist. At the end of the day.
I think I agree
I think
with you.
reptilians are running this country and they're drinking fucking blood in the back rooms, and that's what's really going on.
You know what? I'm gonna second that, Nick.
I'm just happy to be on a podcast where I can say that.
Yeah, I'm going to
Thank
second.
you.
Yeah, I'll second that. Holy shit! All right, I want to talk more about the Trump DeSantis thing, but we're kind of out of time.
Okay.
Nick, how do we get a hold of you?
Oh, yeah. Check me out on every social. It's at Nick Nittoli, NickNittoli. And, yeah, man, I'm on everything. Instagram, Twitter, fucking Truth Social, you name it.
I'm excited. Nick, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks
really
so much for having me,
appreciate
man.
it. You
Pleasure.
know, one last thing. The whole Trump-DeSantis beef, though, is fucking retarded because both of them are pretty qualified.
Yeah, like I said,
It's retarded.
It's not the end of the world if DeSantis wins at the end of the day, man. But I just think, like, Trump shows up like a motherfucking boss, bro. He
Do you
shows
think
up.
he's going to debate? Do you think he'll show up to the debates?
I just think he shows up like he just fucked your main bitch and he doesn't care. And I love that about him. He's got such a bravado and he's just like, you know what? Like, nobody's going to Trump, bro.
Hey, vaccine salesman of the year, Nick.
Here's, you know what I'll say?
Vaccine salesman of the year.
Oh, 100%. That's the only. I have a song right now. Shameless self-promotion. I got a new song dropping about Trump. It's called Trump Was Right. And in the hook, I say Trump was right about this. Trump was right about that. Trump was right about everything except maybe the vax. I don't agree with the fucking mark of the beast, and I never will, bro.
He also didn't pardon Snowden, didn't pardon Assange. A lot of that shit also.
Snowden's a bitch, man. I don't really know.
What? Come on. He's the one who literally exposed the government's fucking spying on it.
I love Snowden.
There
I
you
love
go.
Snowden. I'm just fucking around. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's like, who told you that?
Because he didn't pardon him. He had a chance to pardon people towards the end of his presidency.
I know, but who told you? Was it them? Don't trust anything they say.
It's a perfect cliffhanger. Also, my friend is getting sued by Joe Biden for driving one of the Trump trucks.
Oh, word?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And like when I did my episode with her like a year ago, maybe things changed. She said that the Trump team didn't like do anything to offer.
You should jump in Forgioto's Trump truck, bro. Nobody's gonna sue you for that.
Yo,
That
facts.
shit is fire. Have you seen that thing?
No, I
the
want
Trumpmobile, the MAGA-mobile.
Bro, I want to see it. I want to
Fire,
see it.
bro.
I want
It's
to see
fire.
it. All right, Nick.
Cool.
So much fun.
Pleasure, man.
Love it.
Anytime.
All right.